Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Heisuke's route, and we went to go find Sanan and Sen, and we ran into Kazuma, who's probably basically going on the same mission anyway, but we seem to be at odds just because, Heisuke doesn't like Kazuma. But let's hope we can get this ironed out amicably and work together. Chill out, Heisuke. Let's see. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. In the same instant, both men dropped into a fighting stance and unsheathed their swords. Wait, what are you doing? The moment they'd drawn their swords, a man had materialized from the shadows behind each of them. Heisuke had struck down the one behind Kazuma, and Kazuma the one behind Heisuke. Ah. Both men stepped back and resheathed their swords. These must be Sanan's furies. Whoa, what's wrong, Chizuru? Oh, I just thought you two were actually about to fight each other. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I sure would love to fight this bastard. If those guys hadn't shown up, maybe I would've. Oh, don't fool yourself. Besides, you still can't touch Amagiri. There's no way you could touch Kazuma. Sorry, kiddo, but you're the weakest of the romanceables.
A fight, please. It would have been a slaughter.
Watch it.
It seems rather strange he would only dispatch 2 men. Perhaps these are only watchdogs placed at the border.
A keen insight, Lord of the Kazuma family. Kimigiku! I apologize. My skills do not tend toward direct combat, so I can only watch. Well, you could have thrown a kunai or something in here. She bowed deeply and, embarrassed, I gestured quickly for her to stand back up. There was something I wanted to tell her. I think she knows. Kimigiku, about Sen. I know what happened. If only I had stayed by my lady's side.
Even if you had, I doubt you would have been able to help.
Hey man, don't be like that. Kimigiku and Sen were more than just a master and servant. They were friends. Perhaps Kazuma's words were true, but they were also harsh. No, Todo, it's all right. He is correct. I'm quite aware that I would have likely been able to do nothing had I been there. And that is why I'm investigating the situation here, in Sendai while I waited for you. And then, you've already penetrated his defenses. What have you found out? Sanan has somehow won the favor of the Lord of Sendai, and is increasing the number of Fury soldiers under his command almost daily. They're all fanatically loyal to him. Before Sanan had disappeared, he told us that he intended to found a kingdom of Furies. I hadn't believed him at the time, but if what Kimigiku was saying was true, then his twisted dream might be well on its way to becoming a reality. I shivered. Kimigiku, do you know what happened to Sen after Sanan took her? My lady has continued to resist the Fury blood, and so he has confined her to Sendai Castle. I saw her fist tighten. Kazuma did the same. Whoever thought Sen would become a damsel in distress? Let's hope this castle is where our princess is.
Damn it. I doubt a true demon can be conquered by the blood of a Fury, but no reason to take a chance.
I agree. We should move as soon as possible. I'll try to find a way into the castle and join you later. I work better alone. Sendai Castle, huh? Home of the lord of the Sendai domain. It's gonna be well defended. I watched Kimigiku leave, my heart heavy with worry. There was no way to avoid it. We would have to go to Sendai Castle. As I was trying to decide what we should do next, Kazuma turned and began to walk into the forest. Kazuma, where are you going? I think we should stick together.
Don't be ridiculous. We're after the same thing, so we have no reason to fight one another. But that does not mean we need to be friends.
I would have expected nothing else from him, but to hear it said was a little disheartening. My shoulders slumped. Kazuma glanced at me, then turned away to cough awkwardly.
I'll give you one piece of advice. If there's anything you want to do, do it now. Tomorrow night at midnight, Amagiri will cause a commotion at the far border. That should draw their attention, and leave Sendai Castle at least partially unguarded.
Kazuma! He had no reason to tell us that, but he'd chosen to anyway. My rational mind knew that he likely only saw us as a resource to be exploited, but it still made me happy. You're pretty well prepared. Kinda expected you to be just the lone wolf type.
Unlike you, I am never unprepared.
Just had to get the last word in, didn't ya? With one last sneer, Kazuma turned and disappeared into the forest. Actually, Heisuke, you got the last word in there. You were the one that just had to get the last word. Heisuke sighed and ran a hand through his hair. What little there is of it. Damn, and I thought he was a pain in the ass when he was trying to kill us. Well, it's still kinda nice to have him on our side, though, right? He grumbled in response, and we set off for the castle. Dun, 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 dun. Charge! Chapter 7. September 1868. The first thing I noticed as we entered the town that afternoon was how eerily silent it was. It was the middle of the day, but the streets were practically empty. Even those who did brave them were as silent as the grave. The wind made more noise than any human. The lack of activity made it easier for us to move around unseen, but it hardly seemed fitting for a city founded and ruled by the legendary Date family. Ah, Date Masamune. If it was this dire and ominous in the daylight, I wonder what it would be like at night. I can only imagine. Sendai at night was like the lair of a fantastical villain. Sanan's fury soldiers rushed the town with a fist made of iron and drenched in blood. Terrified of the voracious bloodlust of the Furies, the citizens barricaded themselves in their houses when night fell. With doors shut and lights extinguished, Sendai felt like a ghost town. We saw shapes moving in the shadows, but there was no mistaking them for human. It was like we'd stumbled into a nightmare. It's like the whole town is dead. Do you really think that Sanan did all this? Is this what he wants his kingdom of furies to be like? What are they going to live on when there's no blood left to take? Until we arrived in Sendai, I hoped that we might be able to convince Sanan to stop and abandon his insane plans. But as I looked around at the dead empty tomb he created, I knew that would never happen. The town was massive, and yet our footsteps were the only sound. There's nobody here. It makes it easier for us to sneak around, but this is just crazy. We stood still and listened, desperate for any sign of life. With our own silenced, I heard footsteps behind us. I turned. There stood a creature who looked human, save for the twisted, hungry grin on its face. It raised a sword. Look out, Chizuru! The creature gurgled as Heisuke's blood struck it, and some of the monster's blood splattered onto his cheeks. It had barely even collapsed to the ground when suddenly the city exploded with motion. Drawn by the spilt blood, human figures appeared from every shadow, but they were not human. Furies! They found us! Should we fight? No, that's hopeless. There's thousands of them. Yeah, you're right. We should retreat. Damn it, they're over here. Kazuma, come back, we need you! A fury leapt at us, then fell back dead, Heisuke's blade sliding out of its heart. Okay, there aren't too many of them. We should be able to get away. No! The bloodlust, now? Just hang on, alright? Yeah, I know. God damn it. This isn't the time. His face was stretched with agony, and the color was beginning to drain from it. I was ready to fight in his place if I had to, but I was hardly skilled with a sword. Better to... There! An empty house! Come on, Heisuke, this way! We ran in, and I slammed the door shut behind us. He slumped to the floor, panting. Are you okay? And exactly how are we barricading ourselves in? Can't they get through the paper windows or knock down any door or panel? I peered out through the crack between the door and its frame. The Furies seemed to have given up on us, and were instead advancing toward the bodies of their fallen comrades. They are really bad at keeping track of people, apparently, if we were able to just dash into a nearby house and they didn't see us at all. My stomach turned and I took my eyes away from the crack. It seemed we were safe for the moment, but there was no time to waste. Okay, so since I messed up with one of the choices before, I'm not completely sure which ending this is going to lead me to. I guess I should do the give him blood ending, and the other one will make him endure it. Alright, I hope this is right. I'm going to give him blood. I pressed my sword against my arm until I felt the skin part. Heisuke. There was no need to say anything else. He lowered his head to my arm and began to drink, as if we'd been doing it for years. His tongue gently touched the skin around my wound, and the dull pain I felt made me feel as if we were connected somehow. Thanks. You don't need to thank me. This, I realized, was why I'd come. Heisuke was my friend, and if he needed my help, I would always be there to give it to him. Even in that dead, haunted city for a moment, I felt warm, happy, and safe, and the cut on my arm barely hurt. I'll gladly give you my blood anytime you need it. All you have to do is ask. But that's not what he wants to do. Time passed, and eventually Heisuke's breathing returned to normal.
Ew.
You saved me again, huh? Thanks. Saved you? I don't really think I did anything. No, you saved me a bunch of times, even before I became Fury. He sat down next to me and gazed off into the distance at something I couldn't see. I've been thinking a lot lately, like how I should live my life, now that I'm some kind of bloodthirsty monster, you know? You're not a monster. That's sweet of you, but we both know what I am. Still, I'm alright with being a monster if it gives me the power to protect you. I'm a Fury. This body's just like all those guys I just killed out there, but there's one thing I've got that they don't. I looked at him quizzically. What one thing? He gave me a gentle smile. I have you. It wasn't fair. How could his smile be so perfect and gentle and bright? Heisuke, if you say stuff like that, you're going to make you think you... Well, I do. Furies go crazy about blood, right? I'd go crazy... He reached out for my hand. With you. My heart swelled. It's taken me a while to realize how I feel about you, but you've always been there for me. Whatever happens, I want to be there for you. So, I'm hoping we can, be together. I had no words to tell him how I felt. Yes would have been far too small to encompass all my emotions. Ah, finally! So I tried something else. I kissed him. He returned my advance with equal passion, and for that moment nothing else mattered. His hair brushed against my cheek, tickling it. He nibbled gently at my lips, and I shivered. Though neither of us spoke, we knew. We loved each other. Heisuke wrapped his arms around my back, and as he did, I could feel them shake. You can hold me tighter. I won't break, and I'm not going anywhere, so please don't be shy. That's right, be aggressive. He was silent for a moment, and then, almost desperately, he embraced me. He didn't know when the bloodlust might cause him to lose his sanity, or when he might end up using his life force and turn to ash. He was scared, but so was I. I couldn't bear to think of our time together being cut short by his death. But there was nothing to say, not then, so I returned his embrace. Enjoy it while you can. I wanted him to feel our hearts beating as one. Together we could face the world. When I was scared and confused, Heisuke would lead the way, and when he was likewise, I would take the reins. So it's a partnership. Sometime later, we found ourselves hiding in a small copse of trees, facing the gates of Sendai Castle. Nearby we could see several soldiers, likely Furies, on patrol in front of it. The impregnable castle constructed many years ago by the legendary Date Masamune now played host to a villain. I love Date Masamune. He's so cool in like almost everything. Alright, how should we deal with this? It looks like they've only got 2 guards right now. Heisuke? Are you really just going to walk in the front door? Hey, come on. You make it sound like I haven't thought it through. I have a plan, you know. Don't forget Amagiri's gonna do a distraction thing. Really? Oh, okay. You know how Sanan thinks, right? I figured he'd guard the back door better than the front. That seemed reasonable enough. After our encounter earlier, Heisuke seemed to be acting more and more like himself. Encounter, huh? I guess there was a little more than just hugging going on there. Well, I had developed a sudden and extreme inability to look directly at his face without blushing furiously.
You listening, Chizuru?
No, I'm lost in my fantasies.
Sanen's always been good at outthinking people, so I figure he might not be expecting something so straightforward.
Okay, but don't you think we should find Kimigiku first? She said she was going to find a way in. No sooner had I spoken than we heard the sound of footsteps nearby. Heisuke and I spun around to see not Kazuma or Kimigiku, but...
Excellent insight, Toto. You almost know me better than I know myself.
Ah!
Then again, I might say the same about myself and you. I thought you might try and enter this way, so I came to have a look around. It seems I was right.
Sanan!
Indeed I am. Shame we haven't seen one another for so long.
He was wearing Western clothes now, but even so, his smile still looked the same as it always had. In fact, nearly everything about him looked just the same as I remembered it. Except for the dark, sickening dread he seemed to exude from every pore.
You've come all this way just to see my castle? I confess I'm surprised to see both of you. I only expected Toto.
Well, you got both of us. She's not going anywhere.
That's right, you guys can't get rid of me.
And calling somebody else's castle yours? You sure you're not counting your chickens before they hatch, Sanan?
Well, perhaps not all mine. I would say at least 90%. This is where my country will begin to take shape.
Country? Sanan, you can't still be thinking of founding a kingdom of furies. Sanan looked up at Sendai Castle. Darkness had turned it into a massive, ominous monolith, frowning down on the city at its feet in grim judgment. I remember the furies roaming the streets in search of blood, and how even during the day the city seemed dead. Did Sanan mean to extend that misery and ugliness to the rest of the domain? To the rest of the country? The thought made me shudder.
And what? You'll be the emperor of this new country? That doesn't sound like you, Sanan.
As I said, Toto, you know me well. But I've already told you, haven't I? The ruler of my country will be the Fury Princess. Well, the normal ruler at any rate.
No, Sen would never agree to that.
Not now, perhaps, but she'll come under my sway eventually. They all do. I've been feeding her my blood for some time now.
You're not gonna let me talk you out of this, are you? Well, I just have to stop you then. The world doesn't need a country full of furies.
Heisuke reached for his sword, but instead of drawing his own, Sanan hung his head. The sadness that showed on his face was all the more terrifying for being genuine.
We fought together in the Shinsengumi once, and we both became furies there. You and I are almost brothers in a sense. How is it that we have come to see things so differently?
Because you're psycho and he isn't. His eyes narrowed, and he took a step forward like a snake closing in on its next meal.
I thought surely you would see the light and follow me, but no. Why? Why did you change?
Because you're crazy!
Was it because of her? Did Yukimura do this to you? Has she twisted your mind? Made you think it was better to be human?
No, Sanan. The only person who's changed was you! Don't worry, Chizuru. I'm not gonna let him lay a finger on you.
I believe in you. Heisuke's words made me feel invincible. They took a few quick steps backward and glared at one another, their hands tightening on their swords. But before their fight could begin in earnest, a sudden commotion broke out at the castle gates. Is that Amagiri's distraction? What? A soldier dashed out and began looking around frantically for someone. Was he looking for Sanan?
It would appear my princess is being fussy again. I have no choice.
He scowled and took a step away from us.
What, running away? Come on, Sanan.
I'll deal with you later. Just now I have more pressing things to attend to than the two of you.
He spun on his heel and strode off. Why aren't we running after him? Heisuke and I looked at one another, surprised.
What just happened?
Hey, you guys let him go? I don't know, but I wonder if Sen is alright. Still, the way he talked about her suggested she was not only alive, but still herself.
Well, we should probably follow him. You felt it too, right? He's bad news. We can't let a guy like that run loose.
He made a good point, but the castle gates were still heavily guarded.
I want to be a badass and just rush in there like a one-man army, but even I know that's nuts.
Yeah, and if Sanan was telling the truth, then there are who knows how many Furies in there, maybe hundreds.
You're correct. There are a great many Furies inside. Besides, if you go in the front, all my hard work will go to waste.
Kimikiku! She smiled at me in acknowledgement, but it was clear we had no time for a happy reunion. She gestured for us to follow and began to walk.
Please, this way. I found the secret passage that leads into the castle.
Whoever had built the secret passage had disguised it as a dried-up well. It looked perfectly innocent to any passerby, and even peering down into it didn't reveal a passage at the bottom. Wow, they really have things like this?
This castle was built during the Warring States period. Most castles have built in lots of secret passages as a last-ditch escape plan, or for getting out during a siege.
Interesting. I wonder if there's, like, hidden treasure in there, too. I mean, I know this isn't the time, but still. Wouldn't that be sweet?
I don't know. It doesn't seem very likely.
I wouldn't be so sure. I've heard rumors. Some say that when Date Masamune built this castle, he had a way of fortune in case of an emergency. Of course, no one's ever found it. It might well be just a myth.
It did seem a little too fantastic to be real, but Kimikiku wasn't one for idle gossip. Perhaps. If there is a fortune in there somewhere, and Sanan gets his hands on it,
then this whole thing is going to go from bad to worse. We have to hurry.
Will we find Sen and Sanan in there? I swallowed silently, steeling myself, and ran after Heisuke and Kimikiku. For several long minutes we trekked through a series of labyrinthine passages, until at last we finally found ourselves beneath the floor inside the castle. One of the floorboards was clearly designed to be removed, to allow access.
From here on in, we'll be in enemy territory. Do not lower your guard.
We climbed up from the secret passage and into a hallway, but the castle seemed almost darker than the underground tunnel had been. It felt different than any other castle I'd ever been to. Most large government castles were filled with the sound and presence of other people. Here, there was only the stench of blood. Heisuke, are you alright?
Don't sweat it. I'm feeling a little crummy, but now's not the time for that. Look.
Ugh! The corpses of more Furies than I could count were strewn across the floor in front of us. It looked as if someone had passed through here already and killed every single one of them. Was that you, Amagiri? Or was it Kazuma? Or was it even Sen?
I wonder. Nah, there's only one guy who could have done this.
We followed the trail of corpses. Instead of breadcrumbs, we have corpses. Deeper into the castle, until at last we found its creator in the act of killing yet another Fury.
You.
Kazuma! You went in before us?
Yes, these Furies don't pose much of a challenge, but killing them is tedious. I decided to enter covertly. Coming in through the front gate would have been foolish.
Oh, thanks a lot. He looked at Heisuke with just the hint of a grin, enough to make me think he had been listening as Heisuke and I discussed whether or not to go through the front gate. He probably was.
I think I liked you better when you were trying to kill me.
They were at each other's throats already, but there was still something reassuring about having someone as deadly as Kazuma on our side when we finally faced Sanan. We started moving again with Kimikiku leading the way. We must have checked over a dozen doors and empty rooms before we found it. It was a beautiful, extravagant door, but when we opened it, a wave of darkness poured out. Beyond it was a hall, and at the far end hung a cloud of death and malevolence. In that cloud I could see Sen and Sanan. He was kissing her, just as he'd done on the night we had last seen her.
My lady! Get away from her, you filthy peasant!
Why'd everything clear up all of a sudden?
Peasant? That's rather harsh. I'll be in control of your master soon enough. You ought to pay me the proper respect.
As he drew back from Sen, blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He wiped it away casually and bowed.
As deluded as ever. A true demon would never submit to a fake like you. How many times must I explain? Fake is such a harsh word. I am a demon now, like those in the West. No, I have become even more than that. A true Fury.
What do you mean a true fury? A fury's a monster, simple as that.
Ah, such a simplistic view. Yes, not everyone can become a true fury. Most become little more than mindless, thirsty mouths. But the two of you, perhaps, could become true furies. Would that interest you?
Me, a demon, become a fury? You might as well ask a tiger if it would prefer to be a house cat.
You can spout all the nonsense you like. Just return my lady to me. Kazuma reached for his sword, and Sanan shifted his glance to Heisuke. We've spoken about this already, but I'll ask you again. Would you consider my offer, Todo? You are much like me. We've seen the same things. If you continue to drink blood, I've no doubt you could reach my level as well. Heisuke isn't like you. Oh, and how so? If he hasn't been drinking blood, then perhaps that statement might have some merit. But he would never have lasted this long without drinking at least a little blood. Would you, Todo? He looked at me, and I nodded.
I don't kill people for their blood. I never have. I've only ever drunk blood from one person, and only because they offered it. That's all I'll ever do. So yeah, I'm not like you.
Heisuke! I could see in Sanan's eyes the moment he realized the time for talk was over. That's unfortunate. I thought you, especially Todo, might see some reason. But I suppose it can't be helped. I will continue to kill for my blood. You needn't do so, because you will die here. The blood of so many victims had given Sanan a dark aura, more frightening than any other fury. Indeed, he was even more terrifying than Kazuma. Jeez, that's hard to believe. Heisuke leapt forward.
Take this!
His sword flew in a beautiful shining arc that looked like the last waning quarter of a silver moon. Your speed and power are both quite impressive, just what one would expect from the captain of the Shinsengumi's 8th Division. Sadly, however, you still fight like a human. He reached up with one hand to grab Heisuke's sword. The blade dove into the flesh of his hand and continued up his arm until at last it came to the rest of his elbow. Ow!
What? I can't pull it out.
With Heisuke's sword still lodged in the bone, Sanan's arm began to heal, more rapidly than I'd ever seen a fury heal before. A wound is only temporary. This is how a fury fights. You were reborn as something much more than human, but you make no effort to cultivate that power, to study it, to understand it. You shunned it, and that's why you will lose. Yeah, but now you've healed with a sword stuck in your arm.
Gah!
Heisuke! The impact of Sanan's blow knocked Heisuke's hands from the sword and sent him tumbling across the floor. As Sanan took a step towards his former companion, a voice echoed out of the darkness behind him, and he stopped.
Then you lose because of your inattentiveness, Fake.
In Kazuma's arms was Sen's limp body.
I see. You took advantage of my distraction during Todo's attack to save the princess. Excellent work. Teamwork, huh? He made himself a nuisance to you, and I took advantage of his pig-headedness.
My lady, I'm glad to see you're safe. She smiled and moved towards Sen and Kazuma. Thank goodness Sen was all right. Wait! Something seemed off. Why didn't Sanan look worried? 'Cause Sen's been having his blood this whole time. Could it... No! Kazuma! Get away from Sen!
What are you...
Sen's eyes snapped open, and blood splattered across her face. Kazuma! With a sickening wet scrape, Sen drew her sword from Kazuma's stomach, and it collapsed into a rapidly growing pool of his own blood. She turned to Sanan and smiled. Oh my, it looks as if the princess is a fury at last. Then, that must mean the blood of a fury superior to that of a demon. Please, Kazuma, what is it like to be such a base creature? If demons are so superior, how did I bend the princess to my will? And why are you dying?
Ew.
Kazuma's wound was too large and too dire for even a demon to heal quickly or easily. He screamed with anger and frustration. Are you kidding me? That seems like it's usually a really light wound for any fury.
I think it's a little early for you to be gloating, Sanan.
He laughed and pointed.
It's not over yet.
To Sen, and I rushed to her side. Sen! Oh, a princess! Kimi, Chizuru! She heard us. As we drew closer, Sen looked absent-mindedly at the blood on her palm, then twitched and looked up at us, surprised. Her demon and fury halves seemed to be wrestling with one another, and her breath was heavy and rough. Sen's eyes went wide, and she threw up her hands. No! Stay away from me! I might kill you! Both of you! What was I to do? Kazuma would have certainly killed her. Better dead than a slave in his mind, but Heisuke...
Do whatever you think is right. If she kills you, though, I'm gonna hate her forever. Just don't give me a reason to do that, alright?
Okay. I stepped forward, buoyed by his words, but Kimigiku stopped me. Okay, I hate to end things there, but I've been going on a little too long, so in the next episode, we might have the rest of the endings. I don't know, I'm a little confused as to whether there's one or two more. My mind is all botched, even though this is all in one night that I'm doing his endings. I'm totally confused. But we'll figure it all out. At least one of these is going to be good. So, hope to see you in my next episode or some of my other ones, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye bye everybody.